Welcome to the 2 Month Review, the weekly podcast where we talk about a big book, section by section, have a good time with it. We're reading The Tunnel by William Gass this season, and specifically on today's program, we're going to talk about section 3, We Have Not Lived the Right Life, which is a section of this book in which I feel incredibly seen in unfortunate ways. But I'm Chad Bose from Open Letter Books at the University of Rochester, and I'm joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox. How you doing today, Brian?
My team won, Chad. I'm so
You
happy.
did. Hells yeah. That was one of the greatest World Series ever, for sure.
I hate the Dodgers, by the way. Just so we're clear. I hate
You're
baseball. I hate baseball and I hate the Dodgers, and so I hate everything. All right.
There we
Hi,
go. Yep.
Kaya. We're also joined by Kaya.
Kaya, who has a
Hello.
new title for the first time on the 2 Month Review podcast, who is the editorial director at Coffee House Press, starting on Monday, November 10th. So congratulations, Kaya.
Thank you. Thank
Welcome,
you.
welcome back to the podcast. We'll still have you.
Welcome back to the podcast. I
Welcome
never
back to the
left.
balloons.
Balloons.
You-
Yes.
oh, yeah, I don't know how to do that.
Welcome back. Jesus. And it's
Before Kaya gets into it, she is accepting any open submissions. She would love those sent to her personal email. It is called catkayastrominus@gmail.com. Please send your manuscripts. They don't have to be edited or formatted. She'll take care of that for you. Please send them in immediately. She is eager to publish your work.
caveat being that is that has nothing to do with my position. So have at it.
Doesn't matter. Send them anyways.
You can
Flood the zone.
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Can't do anything with them, but you can send them to me if it makes you feel better, if it scratches that itch.
That's amazing. Congratulations. We're proud of you.
Thank you very much.
And just to be clear,
How are you, Chad?
this comes with a new title slash I don't know if you call it a promotion, but new title for Mark Haber, in which he will be the acquiring editor for Coffee House, along with doing the marketing directing. So the two of you will be working together to bring Coffee House into the future. All shouts to both of you, and everyone will be looking forward to what happens going forward. So,
Yes. Very
I,
excited.
this section disturbed me. This section
This
totally
section
unnerved
was
me.
it was too relatable.
This one compared to all the others.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Everything is becoming incrementally more relatable, and that is distressing.
Yeah, yeah. I know that you, Kaya, had a bunch of stuff
Just is it because we start getting a little more interior with this section?
moving
I
into
feel
that
like,
tunnel.
correct me if I'm wrong, but before it was just kind of like a professional life. It's very kind of exterior. And now, like, maybe it's this metaphor of the tunnel, but we're really digging into the self now.
Oh,
And
damn. Nice.
it's right. It's kind of, well, I figure if you spent 30 years writing it, it's all going to be layered and meaningful. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're literally and figuratively digging in
This is where
to the
Yeah.
interiors of our house.
on last week's episode, Ted Morrissey mentioned that like the first section in particular is like kind of that like bang, here's all this stuff at once. So they're gonna put a lot of people off with like the kind of grossness of it, of like the fascist aspects. The second part is still like a whirlwind of things, like so many things going on. And then this is where it starts to like piece out some of those bits. Like to give this a recap, assuming I'll try and give this a recap. I mean, basically, it is about our guy William Kohler's like early life for the most part, growing up in a town called Grand. He talks about like the Dust Bowl, about the infusion of like grasshoppers taking things over, then goes back into time into like where his mother at one point was when they were living with his uncle Balt. There's like a tornado that shatters a window and it goes into her hair. She goes crazy. He recounts like that sort of like childhood moment, and then going back to his parents' house much later in life with his kids and his wife, and like that being a very emotional and strange space. And then interspersed within there is a story of Susu when he's in the army, who's like a lounge singer that he wants to fuck. Outside of that, I think a lot of it is I don't know if I'm skipping anything that's really key plot wise, but I feel like everything falls within that kind of framework, which is much slower than what we've been talking about up till now. It's like, yes, now I have huge sections that are about like what it was like growing up with this uncle, what it was like with like the parents. Like this is a firmer grounding, I think, than a lot of the two sections that have come before. with maybe the exceptions of like all the random bits about like what is history from his colleagues and like the rhymes, but otherwise it's like a little bit more of a familiar place in terms of like here's a coming of age, not coming of age per se, but like here's a childhood.
Yeah, and it does give us more historical context, or I think a few more like context clues. I took a lot of notes. I have a low-key obsession with the history of the Dust Bowl because I love how in this section even it's like this thing that God has brought upon us. And I'm like, no, fucking man did it. It's not force majeure like the United States, like humans created that problem. The drought didn't help, but and I made a list of the things where so the Dust Bowl, when he's an adult, the Dust Bowl is from 1930 to 1936. The Great Depression starts in 29 and ends in 39. So you have the Dust Bowl and Great Depression happening at the same time, of course. And then Hitler comes into power in 1933 in Germany and then invades Poland in 39. So like there's this bookending of historical shit show in Europe and in the United States. And I think that all these little familial things like the locusts in the United States, or it's not familial, but the locusts, the grasshoppers, um, just having that reminder that all of that was happening at once historically is really intense. It's a very, very intense moment in world history.
Well, like half 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 the Jewish Bible or the Christian Old Testament is famine, pestilence, wars.
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
And like, it makes you think of like Ecclesiastes, like nothing new,
Nothing never
Exactly.
changes.
nothing
No,
new.
nothing ever changes,
Here's the wind
which
sweeping through, the crops aren't growing, the locusts are coming through. Let's go kill each other.
Uh, I told Chad I was reading the locust grasshopper section while I was trying to eat lunch, and I was trying to eat chili,
Yeah.
and just everything about the mouthfeel and the tortilla chips is like I might be sick. I might get really ill right now. Um, but also saying that everything happens, everything sort of repeats itself. That also is reflected in the sections about his family, where about how he grew up and he has this weird sort of relationship with his uncle and with his mom, and then he brings his kids there, and it's the same thing over and over and over again, which I think is what maybe we can relate to, especially as
Sure.
readers.
Yeah, it's not a literary reference, but it reminded me in a lot of ways of the film Interstellar, and they're interviewing people about environmental disaster, and it's actual interviews of real people that survived the Dust Bowl,
Oh
and
really?
then yeah, so it was actually like real people that grew up as kids in the Dust Bowl and what it was like and how hard life was. And then you just like pick that story up, place it somewhere else, and it's like, yeah, that checks out.
Yeah.
Um, and same with this, like immediately you can't help but like wonder. Um, I could see going the route of, you know, some big strong leader is going to save us from this disaster that we're in. Um, and
Yep.
yeah, when he starts taking inventory of his life, how did I become what I? It's like, oh no, like I'm glad I'm here and not over there because I would have been something I don't want to be.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
And
that's
that's really disgusting and uncomfortable to think about.
There,
Yeah.
there is a little bit of confusion I have over his age at this point in time. Related to, so he is 50 when he's writing this book, which is exactly my age, which makes this extremely uncomfortable. He would have been in his like 20s or so in the early 30s when he's in Germany. And then some of the stories that he's telling from the past seem to like shift his age a little bit. Like he's hiding under the table at the one point in time as a 10-year-old. Like when is that taking place? Like there's a little bit of like fuzziness, which in reading it, I was seeing it as like his memory backwards back in time might not always be exact. Like you see yourself as a 10-year-old or whatever when you're really chronologically would have been older than that, or things could happen at different points. But like it does start to get like a little bit more honed in, I think, on there in terms of like where he is and what his sort of like background is. But yeah.
Yeah. And that made me in reading think about what Ted brought up last week of Gass's own childhood in
Yep.
comparison to what's being written.
I mean, that's the
What do you
line
think?
on 136 is the one that like that there's a paragraph, but the one that hits for that. My father taught me how to be a failure. He taught me bigotry and bitterness. I never acquired his courage because I caught a case of cowardice from my mother, soft as cotton, and I was born with her desperate orality, her slow, insistent cruelty, like quickstand, her engulfing love, which I thought was like hits close to home, but also like feels like a little bit of like a good way of defining like his ancestry and his like background there.
I have a question if before we get to that, since we're kind of talking about landscape, I'm not a Midwesterner, but spent a lot of time there and have a lot of family that grew up there. Well, not Midwest, the Great Plains, but um, on page 100 to 101, it says, there was another storm coming and another, so that tons of topsoil blew out of Iowa and Kansas and North Dakota. The earth, as though sold, rose whining toward hell in its new location. And in the Midwest, that's where hell is, if there's any.
And then marked as
And
my
he,
line, one of
talks
my line
about,
of the weeks. Lines of the week is
okay,
marked right there.
yeah.
So yeah,
Well, that's why the agriculture is so great in the Midwest because we got everyone else's topsoil. Thank you, Dust Bowl.
this
Thank
is
you for
why I got
transporting billions of pounds of dirt our way.
But what I
well,
find interesting though is what sets this off is like hearing some preacher, right?
yep. We've not lived the right.
Um, and we're switching from, and it's not I, it's we. So there's this, it's like an invitation that all of us were screwed up. It's collective. We'll share in all this.
Mhm.
Um, and he goes from that, and then you kind of get this biblical imagery of uh, wasted lands, like locusts, grasshoppers, but he's making it very American at the same time, right? With the Dust Bowl, and then to say like the Midwest, that is where hell is.
Yep. I
I
think
don't
part
know
of
what I
that,
don't know what
like,
to do with that, but
yeah, I mean his like it's interesting because it is like the Midwest in this book at that point in time and the way that he's representing it is that mixture of like the Methodist preacher, the like hardcore like religious aspect of like of the Midwest of that not it's not exactly Protestant, it's a little bit different, a little bit more a little bit less of like your hard work part and more of the like we're fucking everything up. But then there's
Mhm.
that the sort of like you are in the a space that's not the elitist. You're working class. Their family is like his wait, do I have this right that it's his uh mother's family owned the store, like the furniture store, the Finneys that became the Feeney furniture store.
Yes.
Like you're
Yes.
working a furniture store, and his dad ends up working at it because he can't do any of these other jobs. They're all like, it comes down to this like very basic life, getting through life aspect to it. And meanwhile, this dude's like reading all this crazy shit into philosophers, really into Rilke, I'll come back to in a second. And in terms of like the hell of that emotionally, like you're in an abusive, drunken, weird family relationship where everything's like a little messed up. Your Uncle Bart, like all the family moves back in with him, and he's gonna die alone in the most horrifying sort of like way of just like falling and not being found for days while you're dead. Like it's like that sort of like almost it reminds me of like Scandinavian, where it's like very bleak and like separated out. And then you mix in there like they do have the visual, he has the visual textual element to it, but the tornadoes, like to be on in those areas like Iowa, Illinois, Indiana is where this is set. Like in those states, like those tornado situations are crazy and they do seem hellish, like on a very visceral, like physical landscape. When I was working at Delkey in Bloomington Normal's in between Chicago and St. Louis, exactly halfway. There is nothing for hundreds of miles to block the wind. So the winters are like not cold, like the temperature will be like a normal temperature, but there's just this whipping cold wind from like all the way across the plain states. And during the tornado season, the skies turn this like insane looking like red, and suddenly there are like these funnels, and they're just like in different places. Like there's so many times I remember driving and you can see like where a tornado is as you're like sort of moving adjacent to it with like a Doppler effect sort of situation. Like it could be seen as like a very hellish place on like a very basic like as you experience it, and then internally mentally like it is a trapped place. The Midwest is hard to like
What about
hard to deal with.
the it, it's hard not to connect this like one to one with the just geographically the German Triangle.
Yep, yep.
Hmm.
It's Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, right? It's all the major immigration of Germans in the United States.
It's why
Milwaukee,
Wisconsin has the
Cincinnati, St.
highest
Louis.
drunken rate. Yeah, it's why Wisconsin is so
Yeah.
drunk.
There's a lot of mirroring in the section between the German part of Kohler's experience and the American part for sure.
And it is like the German like the I don't know this whole history, so I'm gonna sound like an idiot, but I did listen to a couple um episodes or series of Behind the Bastards, a really good podcast. I've fallen off of, but for a while I was listening to it religiously, and there were ones on like the creation of the German state and the pan-German like aesthetic and like how they felt like they were being overrun by things and needed to like create this kind of German spirit and German space and German place. And I feel like that does reflect on this in terms of like that Midwestern sense of like you're overlooked, you're over everything. There's like a need for like order and construction and like a way to do things. And that spirit comes through.
There's literally a bit. There's literally a Bismarck.
There's literally a Bismarck.
It's a capital.
Also, one of the things, absolutely, yeah, yep. So, I started reading this Reading Rilke book by Gass to see like because Rilke shows up in this a lot, right? And
Everywhere.
everywhere. And like to be honest, I don't know a lot about Rilke. We published a translation of Sonnets from Orpheus, and I've read that, and I've read the Duino elegies like when I was a child. None of it. I don't not a poetry person. So I don't really know
I
that
just
much.
remember the Panther poem.
Panther poem is one of them. Yes. So
Yeah.
this book has a like is it this book is fascinating. I'm only like halfway through, but it is kind of like a biography of Rilke mixed in with like his obsession with like trying to be close to women that he wanted to bone and then like backing away when they were available, sort of thing. How he comes to write the Duino elegies, the sonnets. It's kind of like
Wait, are you saying Rilke
biographical.
invented edging?
Yeah, he invented edging. He
Is
invented
that, is
social
that
edging.
is that going to be the title of this episode? Rilke invented edging in
Well,
all plots.
as you guys say that, I was thinking, I'm like, that could be a fun shirt. Like, what Rilke Fetti? But the first thing I wrote down is that is this book question mark dripping with Rilke? So thank you for saying
Boom.
Gross.
edging, gross, edging with Rilke.
Now, there is a
Yeah.
really fascinating section in this book in which he goes through mostly the first Duino elegy, in which he has the 14 previous translations and then Gass's own translation, which he then criticized. He goes through them. One of the people that he refers to is Al Poulin's translation, which is the founder of Bow Editions from Brockport, New York. So it's kind of funny to see him like
Rockport?
yeah, I was clear and I was correct. No,
Yep.
no shade.
Yep.
That's an in joke for you Rochesterians. Anyways, he does kind of poke fun at Poulin's one at times, but then ends up with it being one of the better ones. So this book is, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know where this is going or how this is going to work out, but there are a couple statements that he makes along the way because it's written not like a here's what happened, but you're sort of immersed in the Rilke world. And one of the ones that stood out to me was how much Rilke was obsessed with like space. That things are one, this is one of them, is that space is very important, like words and poems as like a landscape. And I see this within the tunnel related to a concept that used to get talked about for W.J. Sebald of like this kind of landscape of memory. That there's like that the book isn't necessarily like I'm running through these chronological things, but there are spaces where like things have very huge, like have big memories, have big resonances with one's life. And this book has that spatiality to it, like through and through, both in the text with its like whirlwind stuff and the games that he plays, but also like where it's like setting things and feels like especially aligned. The other thing is the Duino elegies, like reading the first one. I'll read you one stanza because it just stood out to me as being relevant to this book. And this is Gass is like, I don't know what attempt this is for him to translate this. But the first elegy, forgive me, but this will be a second, and I don't think it'll be too long. Who, if I cried, would hear me among the dominions of angels? And even if one of them suddenly held me against his heart, I would fade in the grip of that completer existence, a beauty we can barely endure, because it is nothing but terror's herald, and we worship it because it serenely disdains to destroy us. Every angel is awesome. And so I master myself and stifle the beseeching heart's cry that's my mating song. Alas, who is there we can call on? Not angels, not men, and even the observant animals are aware that we're not very happily home here in this, our interpreted world. Perhaps some tree on a slope remains for us, allowing our look day after day. Perhaps yesterday's walk, and a habit that liked us, like an aging retainer, loyally stays and never gives notice. Oh, then there's night, when a wind, full of the hollow where the world is, feeds on our faces. Who could refuse her when she'll gently let us down, though so long longed for by our heart's solitude? Is she lighter for lovers? Ah, they only hide their loneliness in one another. Don't you know that yet? Fling the emptiness out of your arms to broaden the spaces we breathe. Maybe then birds will feel the amplified air with more fervent light. Now, part of this, like in his critique of like everyone else's translations, he really provides like that you're only translating, your translation is the interpretation, and you need to interpret this poem and talk about it. So some of like what's coming through there are like resonance for me where he's explaining what his bit is, but this sort of loneliness of like being overcome by like the angels, there's nothing to turn to, there's an emptiness, that lovers are just kind of false and are like hiding their insecurities and like things within each other. All this feels like Kohler. Like this suddenly, like reading this then and reading The Tunnel, I was like, I could see now like how Rilke's spirit is in our character, who is also obsessed with Rilke, and sort of maybe that guides him. But it's something that like I'm just the poet. It's such a blank spot for me. Like German writing generally, but like this in particular, like this poetry, Goethe, Rilke, not my thing. So I don't know. That's what I had to throw out there. That's my contribution for the week.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that, I mean, other than sonnets, Orpheus, also, I don't know, I've probably read some Rilke in German classes at some point just for like recitation purposes, but I don't think I've read Rilke. I probably haven't read Goethe, but collectively, I think all three of us have read myriad authors who are heavily influenced by both of those and not only.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
and like I think that's also fascinating. Like I don't remember which German authors Beis Suwa was influenced by, but she loves German literature. And I
Yeah,
think she loves German philosophers also, just the way they present their ideas. And that's, I mean, that's a Korean author. And so it's interesting to, whether we know it or not, be presented these ideas through the lens of other readers. It's like it's a Rilke daisy chain.
oh my.
Yeah, I don't know about those other authors, but Goethe is a really good one. I've been reading some of Goethe,
I think it's
and
pronounced Gautier, and he's a
oh
singer.
yeah,
There is in Chicago sometimes if you're in a cab and you say Goethe Street, they're just like, we don't know what you're talking about. Like you have to say it all like jacked up Midwestern with a
yeah.
hot dog in your mouth to make it, make
Okay.
it make sense.
Speaking
Uh,
of hot dogs in one's mouth,
oh my.
oh my, you're being me this week. Well, you mentioned the lovers hiding insecurities, and that was one thing I wanted to talk about. Also, was the different types of relationships that Kohler is exploring in this section, not just the familial, but also the romantic relationships.
Yeah. Say
Yeah.
more.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you guys had thoughts, but so I kind of honed in on the different types of lover relationships, and I thought it was interesting to go back to Brian's triangle that there are three that he talks about Martha, Susu, which I thought that they had been intimate, but I guess you're saying that he is maybe just wanting to
That's
sleep with
my
her, but has
interpretation.
not. Okay. And then Lou, and I thought that the different way that he talks about each woman is very interesting. Like Martha is this very domestic and stable and almost necessary relationship. I don't know that I would call it love, but I guess you could call it love. And Susu is this, dissociated longing. He's always talking about, she's like dead behind the eyes, like these grasshoppers he's crunching over and walking over.
Paddle
Um,
me, Dickie, till my pants burn.
That's Susu or Martha.
That's Susu.
That's Susu. Yes,
Yes.
which is why I guess I thought that they had had sex because that doesn't seem like something you'd say on stage, but I don't know. And
It's
then in particular the section with Lou is so poeticized and romanticized, and it's one of the sections or one of the paragraphs I loved the most because down to the details of how he's describing her hairpins looking like fish in a sea of glass of this green container, like this beautiful, beautiful imagery. And not that I want to argue which of those loves or relationships he favors the most, but I was struck by the differences in how he described each relationship. And then there is also that triangle. And I also thought, what I don't know what you guys would think, but I thought that that could also be connected to Kohler's relationship and concept of Nazi Germany or his involvement in it.
Well,
I
like
yeah, you go.
there's this interesting the way all that's the way that is all juxtaposed, I found very intriguing. Um, because it's like these grasshoppers are this part of this hell on earth. And all they want to do is two things. They want to eat food and they want to reproduce,
Hmm.
right?
Feed and breed.
Feed and breed. That's the only aims they have, right?
That's a
And
website I'm starting.
great. And for that to take place, it relies on a huge number for that stupidity to take place.
Yep.
If you're just going to be feeding and breeding, you're going to have to swarm something.
Yep.
And so there's this link of where the Kohler's talking about. I had just come back from Germany and I'm sharing these ideas, and people are kind of looking at like these Nazi ideas, looking kind of crazy. And I'm looking around, I'm like, there's a lot more grasshoppers here than there are Jews in Germany.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and he takes us from there and then right into all these relationships that he's going. And so it's like, oh my God,
And
this
the
is okay.
Yeah, and part of that, like the breed of them, the size of everything is like ties into all those ideas about like what is history. Whereas it's like it's a huge mass of things that happen to a huge mass of people, but is there like a reason for like how does one thing happen? Like what leads to that happening? And they keep asking that kind of question throughout here as a refrain of like, then Herschel says that history is this, is self-consciousness coming into existence. And someone's like, ha, self, blah, blah, blah. Like that kind of thing ties back to what you're saying too, of like those masses. You also remind me of, I saw this last night. Again, I love this quote, but like the George Carlin quote where he's like, think of the most average, like that, the person who's like the average dumb person you know, and keep in mind that half of everyone is dumber than they are. And that's, I think, part of like his coming back to any situation and being like, oh shit, there's like a lot of things here.
Yeah, because he sets it up with like God breathing life, and then like these grasshoppers are worse. Um,
Yeah.
and talking
Always.
about this was new speech. This greed made manifest and multiplied like man, greed given a body appropriate to it. Talks about it a little bit more, and then talks about that, yeah, like feed, feed and breed. Oh shoot, I just
I found it. They have
lost
only
where
two
at the
aims.
bottom. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
They have only two aims to feed and breed, and they relied on numbers to make up for their stupidity.
Yeah. And so then walking over these as he's being like entranced with Susu and like wanting to, you know, like just go after her, who cares? And then the very next break after that is I carom from room to room in this house, from wall to wall, bruised by pillows, whipped by curtains, bitten by rugs, and I know that men are capable of anything.
And then right after that, there is no final safety from oneself.
Yep.
Is hot too.
And you
Yes.
described that the carom, which great word, had to look it up. Love it.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I had to look it up,
A
but
baseball caroms off the wall in right
oh,
field
well
right
there you
behind.
have it.
Yeah.
Fuck
Oh, yeah,
me.
make it about baseball.
Yep.
what about a carom board, Chad, instead
I
of a
don't know
pool
about that.
table?
Never
Okay,
heard of
so
it.
But anyway, that also kind of describes the way the grasshopper in the bathroom was bouncing off, and then he
Mhm.
like smothered it with the pillow in the trash can.
And isn't
Yeah.
that kind of like your
Lots
life
of
of like
parallels.
the energy until you die and then you're just desiccated? And like the line that resonates with for me is like, I am old folks now. Where it's
Well,
like,
like,
oh,
Yes.
oh,
but
buddy.
like literally, but look at the image. Like, it's such
Yeah.
a powerful image because these are these things of comfort, right?
Blankets,
And
Yeah.
and it's all of it is attack,
hmm
Hmm.
restlessness, unable to sit still, moving, bouncing around, bitten, hurt by these things that are supposed to comfort you. So like there
Yep.
is no interior peace whatsoever.
Yes. And if Martha,
Yeah.
going back to your thing, Kai, if Martha is sort of like the stability, the like comfort, the sort of like mothering aspect of that love, he's trying to escape that too with Lou, where he goes to the Finger Lakes to do some fingering.
There it
So
is.
I was waiting on that one. But has that affair. I do so with Susu still, I think that she's still I could be wrong, but my read on this was that they do not consummate this love affair, that he's in love with her as an ideal, which being
Mm,
set in that situation becomes that kind of German romanticist of like the genius that's going to come down and touch you. Like
mm.
there's an ideal within like that writing, which I think even Rilke is part of. I know Goethe is one of those of like, it's transcendent, like this comes from beyond, that kind of element of stuff. And I say that because this on 103 when he switches back right from where you're talking about, Brian, from the locust to this club where she's a lounge singer singing that crazy song that's a few pages before the Crow O Crow song. It says, and beer would
Mhm.
cover the table like cloth. The sawdust floor would nevertheless let you slip. Susu was herself a silk and silver illicit wish. Paddle me, Dickie, till my pants burn is in a new font, a cursive font, which I'm curious about. Smoke made our eyes bleed, while song poured out of 100 mouths. I would place both palms on the cool white wall where I went to piss. Hold my breath as long. Steins shaped like castle keeps and capped like cocks kept time. My God, the band was loud. Let no one look at mine. Alone home holding it. I dissolve in sleep like sodden bread. I feel like that was his like lust for it, but there's like in a GI sort of situation with the lounge singer singing and everything's like in that vein and you're all like whatever carousing and then he's just like with his little dick going back home with his micropene, just going back home to like be alone and let it like soften up into like breadcrumbs and milk. And so I felt like that was like part of like Susu does not consummate it. And I could be totally wrong about this, but at this moment in time, I was like suspicious because I'm suspicious of everything that he's saying on some level.
That's fair. Also to answer the question about the italics, the sort of cursive script, I took that to be things that Susu was saying to him.
But that's the only time that it's used, correct?
No, there are a couple other times in relation to Susu. It's never very long. I'm trying to find it.
I was wondering if it's like an
Um,
invented, like, yeah, that's the like beautiful cursive writing sort of high-mindedness,
Fantasy.
but
It almost feels like an internal fantasy.
that's what I was thinking.
Also, I mean, so page 104, sort of at the bottom, it has So My Life Lasts a Little Longer in that same
Oh,
script.
Aha. Yeah.
back of Susu's eyes, of course, there's plenty. There's Hieronymus Bosch. There were diableries. So my life lasts a little longer. I struck at him with my shoe. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. It also could be a line from a song. I don't think the paddle
Yeah,
me
I
one is a
mean,
line from a song, but who knows?
yeah. I imagine that was her voice. I mean, I thought it was her speaking to him, but it could have just been something he heard her say either on the stage or whatever.
Whereas Lou, I feel, is like much more like concretely a real person because he does in
Oh,
this reference, like,
absolutely.
I'm hiding this and I cannot hide it. Yeah, it's like 106. I would hate to have my wife see this. No, I can't have that. She rarely comes here, never pokes out her prize. Still, I dare not stuff these pages behind my books the way I've hidden Lou's letters. Is this lack of suspicion suspicious? No, poor sweet. It's a simple world for her, which is also like kind of demeaning. Like poor Martha, just like simple, not questioning, going along.
But I don't think she is simple. I
I
think
don't think
she's,
so either.
like I was saying, I last week, I don't want to say she's a battle axe, but she's that relationship feels necessary to both of them. And I'm a little confused later on where he's describing, I think it's Kohler's describing, I think his cousin's wedding and not his,
Mm.
but remembering his and Martha's, and that gets a little filmy for me as well, a little hazy. Because I'm unsure if he sleeps with someone at his cousin's wedding who isn't Martha, or they're like he and Martha are dating at the time, or like, or if he sleeps with someone at his own wedding who isn't Martha. It's like all of that. Like Kohler's horny. He's very horny. I
I
think we
thought
can
that it
all
was
agree.
his wedding and that it was just like this is like yeah, I don't know. I
Because
don't
it
know.
gets into the family stuff.
Yeah, it's just listing
Do you
everyone
remember,
who's there.
Brian?
I don't.
No? Okay.
I thought it was just describing this kind of like big wedding thing, but I don't know. Yeah, you might be right. You might totally be right. I
Yeah.
skip past that then. Yeah. But that's right by my one of my favorite bits though is when he's talking about the wedding trip and like everything and the one on 140. I pulled out the shrunken drawers of my schoolboy desk to find perfumes, powders, and compacts, bracelets and skin bracers and soap, utensils for a life nobody's led, because there's not a cranny in this house my aunt hasn't stuffed with something, often wrapped in its original tissue, still tagged, new however old it grows, however stale or out of style. That is my parents' house. That is 1000% my parents' house. You can open up anything, you will find something. It will have a sticker from like 1992 on it with a price. It has never been opened. It is there. It is that one wrecked me. That whole bit was just like blew me off of like 50 years old. Kids don't want to talk to you. You're an old person. Your parents' house is all janked up. Like you don't want to go see these people anymore. And that's what I took the wedding as is essentially like there's all this like family or hubbub, and it's like I not want to be part of this. It's like a whirlwind of like that's that aspect. If like a tornado is like one of the tornado and the locust, which I guess kind of go together, are like kind of the overarching metaphors for this section. I was seeing that as like one of the like that aspect of it. You're at this family reunion just being like, I don't want to be part of this anymore. I'm waiting for these people to die, is like one of the lines in here. Like and separate from it. And then having the realization that you are them now. Like that is you essentially. You are the one who's in your fucking basement wanting to dig a tunnel, hiding shit in your books, like all your stuff is crammed into these other crannies, keeping everything inside or like going through it, and your kids don't want to talk to you. One of whose name you won't utter. Like he only references one child. He will not name the other child
True. Yeah.
because the child's name is Adolf. FYI, spoiler. Um, but that's
Well,
the
just no, but like, just
Spoiler.
if you want to move on to something, just pretend it doesn't exist. Great strategy,
yep,
right?
yep.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
that's a
the
mistake. Let's just
Holocaust
pretend it doesn't
deniers would agree
exist.
with you.
Yeah,
The Holocaust deniers would agree with you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which
So
There's
to
for
add
me
some.
this section though. Oh, sorry, you're gonna add.
No,
Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
The thing that I keep coming back to with this section though is, in some ways, it's nice because with Golden Notebook, this idea of fractured identity.
mm-hmm.
I felt like this one had a lot of like with that idea of like your home, this place is supposed to be a refuge for you, and it's not. And then you
Yeah.
start kind of looking at yourself, and you don't like what you see, and so now you start wrestling with your own identity, and you start looking back at things, and you're not really sure how you ended up where you are now. This idea of like what men are capable of becoming, specifically if you are uncomfortable, unwilling to, or don't have an identity.
That
What's going to form that? What's going to like I think it's a really, really important thing to be thinking about, like this, anytime, but especially today.
yeah.
Like when we have other things forming identities for us
Uh-huh.
because we're not living the way we're supposed to,
Yep, we're not living the right life.
and what we're capable of becoming and what we're capable of doing or what we're capable of allowing.
There's like a few things that link up to that so well. So like on 106, he says, "When I write about the Third Reich, or now when I write about myself, is it truly the truth I want? What do I want? To find out who I am? What is the good
Yep.
of that? I want to feel a little less uneasy. We drag our acts behind us like a string of monsters. Then you get the like really kind of like misogynistic, racist stuff from Uncle Balt, which I want to come back to because it's super funny.
Is this
And
before or after Sora AI and AI videos?
and then there's a part, one of the ones where it's like, you know, it keeps saying like Herschel ventured the opinion about history, and this one on 142, Herschel ventured the opinion that history was, after all, a process through which human consciousness perhaps endeavored to achieve self-contained existence. And I feel like that with this is
Mm.
kind of the book. Like the book is trying to attain that idea of like the self-consciousness that creates this sort of existence of who am I? And that's where he's like, do I want to know who I am? Sort of question. And like looking at both the loves like that you're talking about, this just general state of hell that he grew up in, and then the family life, which imposes a certain number of structures on you. He's replicating a lot of his uncle's behaviors. He's replicating his dad's behaviors. His mom is sleeping with the bread man, and he wants to sleep with Lou. Like it's all like kind of that replication of these things of being trapped in like, do you really want to know all this? Do you want to know that? Are you going to write yourself into like an existence that's self-contained and makes sense? And what's going to be there? It's going to be this fucking crazy fascist shit that's like sort of driving you through anger and bitterness.
So that considered, do you guys think that we as readers already know who Kohler is, or are we in discovery in the same, like, does Kohler know who he is? This is a very broad question, but like if the character is writing about figuring out who they are, do we as readers for this book at this point, like I kind of feel like I get it, but I mean, we're only 140 pages in. Like, am I jumping the gun?
I think here's something I want to say to that is that I think what it does is runs that like people would refer to this as sort of a, especially in our world today, like a sort of risk where you start out with someone who's like clearly like a sort of quote unquote morally bad person. Like they're writing this book, they're questioning like the guilt of
Unreliable.
German citizens. Yeah, just like that.
Yeah.
And then as you go on to learn who he is and what made him what he is, you become more sympathetic. And that's like one of those things where like, are you sympathizing with someone who is a Nazi? Or
Humbert,
are you,
Humbert.
yeah, or are you recognizing that
Hmm.
these conditions that we live in even today can foster that sort of like reaction? And also, is it bad? Like, is there something wrong with having that internal monologue of this, but never acting on it? Like, are there like that sort of like, oh, I'm pissed, I hate everything, fuck these people, all this stuff, but you don't act on it. You're not part of like the Nazis, you're not murdering Jews, but yet it's still inside you. Is that who you are? If you're as
Hmm.
an existential question of this, like, does it matter if you just don't do anything
Yeah.
um actively like in the physical life? But I think you're right. Like, I don't know that you know who he is exactly, especially because he's probably lying about various aspects of this. That makes sense.
Yeah. And to
You might
Claire,
want
just
to
to add on, I wasn't I like what you said about the narrative getting us to sympathize with this person. I'm not there yet. I'm not sympathizing with anyone, but I was just asking about the like,
yeah.
do we have him figured out? Or like roughly like okay. Just want to clarify.
Yeah, I
Do not.
because I find him like I find him extremely unlikable, but at the same
Mm,
time, it's like this hideous mirror that you have to look into.
yeah.
And in a lot of ways, it reminds me of cinematically. It reminds me of that scene in Brian De Palma's film Scarface,
Mhm.
where Tony Montana is sitting at the club or something like that, and he's looking around at all these like rich, glamorous white people, and he's like, "You see them? They need somebody like me, right? They need to be able to look at me and say that's the bad guy."
You need the Dodgers. The
Right?
Dodgers
Exactly.
needed
No, but
this.
like if you want to live your life and feel okay about it, you need to look at somebody else and say they're bad, they're gross, they're disgusting. I'm glad I'm not like them. And then you
Mhm.
Mm,
go live your bad, disgusting, gross life.
yeah.
Yep.
Right?
You need to other someone and
Hmm.
put them
Yeah.
down.
And I feel like Gas is using Kohler to try to that character Kohler, I think, is like he's trying to like talk about this, especially Um, I feel like he's really like pointing at the academic cloister.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you guys
Yeah.
got it all together. You're so smart. You're wonderful. This or that. No, you're not.
And like the whole thing about like what
And
is
you
history,
want to
I'm sorry.
go ahead, yeah.
But like the whole like what is history? And they're like debating it in these ways. And he's like, they're throwing Jews into a fire. Like there's like a very like just take it down from like your abstract plane into like this is what's really happening. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Masked people are showing up and just picking people up off the streets and disappearing them.
yep, where they
Well,
go, nobody knows.
let's discuss this. I think we should have a discussion, right?
I
Like
I think I'm going to propose a paper for the next conference about like
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
this will
Oh
have a
yeah, you can
big
turn
impact.
anything into a conference paper.
It's an
Yeah, you can turn it.
exquisitely uncom it's at any time it'd be an exquisitely uncomfortable read.
Yes.
Right now it's brutal.
Yeah,
It's
because you
brutal
could
to read this right
like
now.
elements of this, like the one of the things that Guess is doing here that's like complicates everything is that Kohler is smart, right? Like if
Hmm.
Kohler's like a just your what I assume are most of these people who are signing up to be ICE agents for like for whatever reason are like Kohler but dumb, like real dumb.
Sure.
And Kohler
Yeah.
is like real smart but has that same impulse. And like as a reader of this sort of fiction, that's where I'm thinking like that sympathy part starts to play in. It's like, yes, these are very interesting ideas. I'm interested by this guy. I'm interested in Kohler. Do I think that he's a good person? Not really, but I can see aspects of this like the relationship to the parents, that whole situation. That does
Mhm.
resonate with like outside of him being bad. It doesn't matter if he's like a bad person. That stuff is like, very, very well rendered and very well written and like meaningful. But because he's smart, it's much easier to be like, yeah, you're right. Like analyzing who you are and acknowledging that you're bad makes this very interesting. Whereas I think like the ICE agent people are just like oblivious and just like
Yeah.
doing it. But the two are not, they're connected. They're the same thing, just like a different way of approaching it in a way.
Hmm. You
And
know who's really easy to understand though is Uncle Balt.
fuck yeah, because he yells.
Because everything's all caps. Like it took a couple pages and I was like, oh wait. And this is no shade, but this is how my uncle, one of my uncles writes all of his emails is always all caps and then ends everyone with okay and
And
then signs his name. And I love it.
no,
I love
Uncle,
it.
just nattering.
Yeah, I love on page like everything he says, like 120. It's like the absolute opposite of this academic character, this like quiet, rural farming, like everything is so simple where he's like, watch out for the hopper, they'll grind you in half. He's like, they'll make you into man jam and serve you on toast. Like, don't get under the wheels, boy. Like it's such a simplistic delivery. And then when he's like quietly, like Kohler as a child is watching him like quietly walk through the fields and stuff, it's kind of this like, what is that man? Like, what's going on in that marvelous brain? And it's like man jam and tractor wheels.
Well, there's also like the irony of like Uncle Balt and the nature of being, right? It's like some academic paper title, a title for a paper or something. It's just like, well, they're gonna get you. Like,
Yep.
okay, this is the nature of being. Like,
This whole section is so funny. Chit chat in a hat, dithering among the dusty doilies, getting fat on chat. Ryan Gab, I'm like so
How can a man
misogynistic.
remain sane with all this gabble and geese hiss going on around him?
So funny. And then just dies alone. Just dies. This was gonna be, I don't know if I have more, but one of the things I marked as the line of the week was related to that. It just says, I think he was loud because he was alone.
Yeah, that's
that's a
so
great
fucking,
line.
it's so good. It's
So
so fucking
good.
sad.
Yep. I think you write a book like this if you're alone.
You're in the tunnel.
You're in the tunnel.
Yep.
Digging. Speaking of, next week we are going to talk. The next section is today I began to dig. So
Mm.
we're going to get to that next week, which is goes up to page 214. So that section is a little bit longer. And then the section right after that is Mad Meg. So I think we're in for a couple bangers here to go. But as the whole book is a banger. But turns out, was there anything else you guys wanted to bring up from this particular section?
Those are my notes. We
So
covered
Ryan,
everything I wanted to do, so thank you.
I thought the whirlwind thing was cool when I picked up on what was happening with the lines interspersed between the lines, the kind of like
Hmm.
tornado aspect of it. I think the that getting away from some of the pyrotechnic layout stuff is good. I think that that worked really well for this section because it is a little bit more straightforward. I thought that was cool. Um, I don't know if I had anything else for this particular part. Um,
I want to say real quick, it's not my line of the week, but the consistent and continual like great imagery and great metaphors of things and like I guess giving a great metaphor and then undoing it at the bottom of 135, where Kohler says, I remember wheeling my bike from the garage and galloping away to school as though it were Arizona. I haven't cycled since I was siphoned off to war, and I've never been to Arizona. I guess that's not a metaphor, but I still there's I love it. I'm really falling in love with the writing more and more.
yeah, absolutely. Um, Anything from you, Brian? And do you have a favorite line or a section you wanted to bring up?
Um, 119 will be my line of the week. Um, it is discouraging to leave the past behind, only to see it coming toward you like the thunderstorm which drenched you yesterday.
Mm.
So good. So good. Okay, do you have a line of the week that you want to use? I've used most of mine, so I'm trying to find another.
I do on 147. Um, I'm gonna go to it. It's just I wrote it down in case my tablet died, but okay. On 147, my God, to be a man as I am, smothered with women and children like a duck with onions.
I love duck with onions. Okay.
Just
Solid.
like,
My last one is we were happy because we had no history.
yeah, that's a good one too.
Got some serious great lines in here. So if you're listening to this still and you are enjoying the tunnel, I highly recommend checking out the Mining the Delkey Archive podcast this week, which is a conversation with Francesca Wade, Cecilia Conchar-Farr, and Janie Sisson about Gertrude Stein, who's a huge influence on gas. And we talk about the making of Americans, about Stein's the new biography from Francesca Wade called Gertrude Stein and Afterlife that talks both about like her how her reputation came to be, how LSB Toklas gave these really interesting interviews that were never published to a particular academic. They weren't published until more recently, and like focusing on her book, The Making of Americans, which Gass wrote the introduction to, so or wrote an introduction to a reissue of it. That is really influential on him. It's another book and another situation in which space and like landscape and like the text on the page means something. So it all ties together. So if you're listening to this and you're interested and want to go deeper on gas, I highly recommend listening to that. It's a very fun conversation. The three of them were brilliant. They know so much about Gertrude Stein. It was really fun to like talk to them and learn. So recommend that. Otherwise, we'll be back next week with the next section. Do you guys have anything you want to plug or refer to or leave all of the list?
Just congratulations, Kaya, finally getting to go to a real publishing house. That's amazing.
She's been drafted by the Dodgers.